Hello, my name's Michael Keneally and this video is entitled You Need to Combine Western and Vedic Astrology for the Full Truth. Did you ever feel an astrology reading didn't get to the heart of the matter? Did you ever feel you were left with no idea of what sort of work to do to deal with the karmas you face in this life, or the energies that are upcoming for you? Okay, this first video in a series and its follow-on parts explain that I do get to the heart of the matter. And this is because I always combine very well prepared deep dive into both your Vedic astrology and your Western astrology. The need to combine Vedic with Western astrology is the first key point I must make. The first key point we must take on board. Vedic astrology is the statement of our karmas, our fate, our destiny, our life purpose direction from our past life, those selected for us to deal with in this life. And Vedic astrology uses the sidereal zodiac, which is anchored to the fixed stars. Western astrology, on the other hand, is a statement of our psychological self, our sub-personalities, etc., and its unfoldment in this life. Western astrology uses the tropical zodiac, anchored to the moving position of the sun in relation to the stars on the day of spring equinox. But then, even when we've heard a statement of our karmas and our destiny and life purpose direction, and of our personality and our sub-personalities and what's in our shadow, etc. How can I deal with my karmas and these issues? Well, the other important point is that there are now new ways of dealing with them, of manifesting them, of healing them. I myself offer a deep range of healing journeys, death and rebirth approaches, shamanic journeys, vision journeys, all of which really make having my readings so exceptional and worthwhile, but also see the wonderful healing modalities offered by the panel of astrologers and healers on my Love Star Dating website. Love Star Dating website is for those on a spiritual journey who are seeking love. So, you see, the need is not just to use both Western and Vedic astrology. It's also, obviously, to find and use effective measures to heal our karmas. This is the second key point I must make. The second key point we each of us have to take on board. And please do note I offer both of these key issues. This is both my deeply caring astrology readings and also the wonderfully deep, completely personalised and thoroughly supported astrology courses I do. There's a huge range of them. Go to my Star Wheel Astrology website. You see, I've found that if you don't combine both Vedic and Western, you always end up with partial truth. It's blinkered at the best. And you miss the crucial opportunities also needed to heal and fulfill your life. You always end up with incomplete or even misleading understandings of your life, your mind and consciousness, your relationship issues. Obviously, I do readings and courses on those. Your life purpose. And yes, what is buried in our unconscious and our shadow. And what transformational steps do you need to take to heal and grow? So the point is, if you don't use both Western and Vedic astrologies, you're actually misled. So let me share with you how I came to this realization. I was first of all working as a Western astrologer, as is the case for most of us who grew up in the West. Now, my Western astrology includes psychodynamic Western astrology with its wonderful identification of our sub-personalities, wonderful asteroid astrology dealing with what's in our shadow and our existential wound. Psychodynamic Western astrology includes wonderful predictive age points. But something always confused me. Why was it that my Western astrology chart said so very, very, very little about the fact that I personally would experience such a horrific start in my life as Western astrology actually did? But then what happened was, in 1997 I read a book I came across by chance which showed me that the combination of both Vedic and Western astrologies actually produces magnificently vaster and magnificently more accurate statements than just using one of the astrologies does on its own. So then I studied Vedic astrology, adding it to my Western astrology. And I found that Vedic astrology predicted the exact circumstance of my horrific start in life at a glance, whereas Western astrology hardly stated it at all. So we do need full and accurate statements, obviously. It became clear you do need both Western and Vedic astrology for the needed full picture. So because I want to show you that what I'm saying actually is the truth, let me tell you how using both Western and Vedic astrology combined actually told me the truth of my story, making clear what wasn't clear to me, what was buried in my unconscious, etc. And this meant that thus I was able to do the very needed work to delve deeper into the implications of the issues in my life and do work to heal the demands placed on me by my karmas and these life experiences. Okay, so Western astrology puts my South Node, Ketu, in my 4th house, and across the chart my North Node, Rahu, in the 10th house. Okay, so what could be predicted from that? Well, mother will not value him, so he will strongly focus on career to compensate. And yes, that's true. But this Western astrology statement does not at all describe the full circumstances and key effects of my birth and mothering, and this perplexed me for years. But once I embraced Vedic astrology as well from 1997, I saw that Vedic astrology tells my karmic life, my life purpose and destiny as well, with immense clarity and truth, at a glance almost. Yes, I found that the Vedic statement said the circumstances of my birth and mothering destiny almost totally and at a glance, whereas Western astrology fails completely to do so. So first of all, I found that Vedic astrology places my moon deep in one of its 3 Gandanta zones. The 3 Gandanta zones are zones of immateriality and unsupportedness, and they're right on the transition point from the water sign to fire sign. There are 3 of these. And very importantly, my moon is in the deepest Gandanta, 29 degrees 56 Pisces, at the end of the universe. Mother was not there at all for me, was not as supportive at all for me. So this is the point where the Gandanta has its worst of its effects. But it's so crucial to realise that actually having a planet in the Gandanta where you're so unsupported can open you to connection to the divine, to the vastness beyond this unsupported realm, if we learn how and the right ways. Indeed, I did a 5-year field study for Bristol University about the Western reception of spiritual forms new to the modern West. And it became clear to me that the tantric religions, Hinduism and Tibetan Buddhism, actually have the definition that if this world is experienced as so unsupportive, that experience can open us to the God realm beyond. I say more about that in a moment. What happened in my case was that when my mother was found to be pregnant, my father said he wanted nothing to do with her. I only met him once when I was 43. So glad I did. And she then was made homeless as an example of moral wickedness to the land army girls she was working with. And indeed, we lived in a hut on Kettering railway sidings until the local priest told my mother that if she did not place me in a convent orphanage and ensure that I ended up with only Catholic adopters, she would burn in hell forever. There could be no forgiveness. So I now come to the second point where Vedic astrology excels and Western astrology knows nothing of it. I was indeed put in a convent orphanage when I was 4 weeks old. Now, the important thing is that Vedic astrology has a wonderful system of predictive periods called dashas. Western astrology knows nothing of that. And Vedic astrology predicts by its dasha system, predictive periods, in my case, that I would have a terrible experience, a terrible change in my life from when I was 14 days old. I'm so sorry, 4 weeks old. And basically, on the very day that my Vedic predictive period changed, and I entered the dreadful Ketu South Node predictive period, that was the day I was put into a convent orphanage. My world, such as it was destroyed and I lost my mother. Just as Vedic astrology predicted a situation of this type would actually happen on that date. You see, the nature of Ketu, my new predictive period when I was 4 weeks old, is cutting and unworldly, but for spiritual growth openings, if you can identify them, if you can survive them, and if you can do the needed work, working with them, in that case, you reap a spiritual harvest. So you can see the truth of what I'm saying, that Western astrology barely stated my destiny, whereas Vedic astrology says it accurately, exactly, and at a glance and to the date. So what exactly is the difference between the two zodiacs? Well, basically, Vedic astrology is a statement of our karmas. All the karmas which we incarnated to work with in this life, based on all the karmas we ran up in our past lives. So Vedic astrology is the statement of our fate and destiny direction in this life. Whereas Western astrology, on the other hand, is the statement of our emotionally based self and the unfoldment of that in this life. And my point is, you absolutely need both to understand your fate and destiny, to understand the unfoldment of your life. And why do I say both? Well, you see, in my particular case, some years later, after I started with Vedic astrology as well, I read about Sedna asteroid. Sedna was discovered in 2003, and Sedna became extensively used in Western astrology, but not at all in Vedic astrology. And I found that Sedna was exactly conjunct my natal moon. So Sedna too is deep. It's deep in the Pisces Gandanta zone of immateriality and unsupportedness. Sedna is the energy of terrible events causing suffering, helplessness, resentment, trauma. But as the myth from the Inuit Eskimos explains, we have to learn that this terrible energy in our life actually has to be treated as having a karmic purpose. Sedna has the potential to become healed and strong and connected with the divine, and so delivers the reaping of a harvest, and then the possibility of sharing our harvest with others, if we can only grow to see that, if we can do the spiritual work. So you see now why I say to you, we really do need both Western and Vedic astrology for the fullest statement of our astrology, our self, our destiny, and our life issues. Okay, I need to share another issue with you to even more fully convey to you the most important statement you do need, both Western astrology and Vedic astrology, when you have an astrology reading or when you do one of my astrology courses. And that came up with my first Vedic astrology tutor, wonderful guy to whom I owe so much. Now, he told me Mars is your strongest planet. It's in Vedic Scorpio. It doesn't receive aspects from the other Vedic planets to disturb it. But what this Vedic statement missed is something crucial beyond words, something that is in Western astrology and not Vedic. This is the statement from Western astrology that actually my Mars is conjunct Chiron. Mars bears my existential wound. So obviously, therefore, we do absolutely need to include Western Chiron. We need to know about our Chiron, as well as knowing the vast and magnificent and utterly wonders that come to us from Vedic astrology. You see, the key point with Chiron is that in the healing of our existential wound, we can become the healer of others. Not to know about your Chiron is a disaster. It's a disaster in learning about your fate and destiny. It's a disaster if we don't heal our Chiron existential wound. And it's a terrible block to identifying the needed details of your karmic fate and life purpose if you don't also deeply know about your Chiron. Not knowing about your Chiron is a terrible block to healing that Mars fate of mine. It's also totally crucial, by the way, to know about the star energies in your chart, in your consciousness, in your life. And I always include relevant star energies in my readings and courses. Now, the point is, each of our planets carries a karma from past lives, whether positive karma and or negative karma. So what happens is that our higher self reviews all the karmas we ran up in our last life at the moment of our death, at the end of our last life. Also reviewing, of course, all the karmas that stretch back through many past lives. And from this review, our soul or higher self states the range of karmas that we need to experience and work with in this life. A selection is made for us to work with them in this life. Now, I just add here something of the karma attached to each of our planets is wonderfully stated in one of the divisional charts of Vedic astrology, one of the Varga charts or divisional charts of Vedic astrology, in this case the D60, the Shashtiamsha. Each planet is shown to carry the nature of a deity, a face of the divine, depending on the karmas we ran up in previous lives. The exact deity or face of the divine depends on what we did with that planet in our last life, in our previous lives, good or bad. And this is because Vedic astrology, like Tibetan Buddhism, is tantric. We need to know that we have to be able to connect to the divine either through nicey faces of the divine or through awful faces of the divine. Both of them can connect us to the ultimate divine. And that's because Vedic astrology, like Tibetan Buddhism, is tantric. We need to know that we have to be able to connect to the divine either through nicey energies or awful energies. And this is such wonderful guidance, and Vedic astrology offers it. I included it in my reading for you. Okay, so now do watch out for the second video in this series that I'll be doing before too long. A second crucial to know about video. And the title is, how do we find out from astrology what our karmas are in this